Welcome, welcome, Andy. Preston. How are you, sir?
Yeah, good. Thank you. And you?
I'm awesome. Thanks, Andy. Part of this series is just exploring perspectives on change. If I said to you, Andy, change your thinking, change your life, what would that mean to you?
I think everything really starts in the mind first. So my area of expertise is sales. And I always say that relating to that, the sale is made in someone's mind first, where it's made in reality. So I think the catalyst for change is always a change of thinking, either when somebody's wants something, so there's a pull towards something, or they've had enough of something, so there's a drive away from that the shift, the desire, the emotion, the will, the want to change starts in the mind first. No, I don't think anybody really loves change. I think people tolerate it. Some people dislike it. Some people really hate it. A lot of people resist it. So having that, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, change is going to make you uncomfortable. So the more the comfortable you can get with the uncomfortable feeling, I think certainly for me, makes a big difference, because I go, when I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm going, great. So there's a change coming. What am I resisting? What do I need to look at? What's the opportunity here? And then driving through that uncomfortable feeling. I think for me, I've found that really useful in my life, certainly.
Can you give an example of a story in your life which is perhaps, pivotal or dramatic when it comes to change and shift, and maybe in your thinking first, Andy?
I think particularly the shift for me from being my original business when I set up was an events company with a training division. So the shift from that, from being the sort of local, well-known in Manchester, where I'm from in the UK, to going internationally, and now having spoken in more than 40 countries worldwide. One of my great friends went to live and work in Qatar. So I started really trying to find excuses to go and see him. And I realized that actually I could create a business and a lifestyle based on travel. So in other words, I found out where my friends are, where I wanted to be, and then deliberately went for work around that. So that if you'd asked me 10 years ago, 12 years ago, was it possible to have what I have now? I would have said, no, there's no way that's going to happen. It's ridiculous. And as you know, the weather in Manchester is not great. So the more time I can spend outside Manchester, generally, the better things are.
Did you look at yourself 12, 15 years ago and say, well, did you visualize some sense of future lifestyle creation rather than, the job?
Yeah. And for me, it was about, it facilitates the access to what I want to do. So I'm very lucky in that next few weeks I get to go to the England rugby tour of South Africa, and I've found work around that trip. So I've literally I knew I wanted to do that trip on those dates. So I'd literally prospect for work around those dates. So it's very much the friends, lifestyle, music, concerts, where do I want to be first, and then drive the prospects in the business after that. So it's very much a lifestyle-led business. I'm lucky in that I can then pick up work around that.
Before you got established internationally, what was the toughest point there, do you think?
The toughest shift was probably going from a very comfortable place where I was earning good money for working very regularly, shifting to a higher fee international model where I'm doing less delivery and charging higher fees to get the same revenue. But it was really weird, the kind of comfort level or comfort zone of everyday regular work into, oh, actually, I've not done a delivery for 2 or 3 days. I almost feel like I've not worked, even though I've done marketing and I've done blogs and I've done videos. I feel like I'm not actually working because I'm not delivering. Yeah. It was all in my head, but it was a really weird shift. It's like, oh, am I a bit of a fraud here? I'm not really doing anything, and yet the revenue's here. It was a very weird switch initially, and still even now, having been I was a top salesperson in my industry in the UK, and I got there through a lot of hard work and effort. It feels almost alien to be, I'm not actually doing any work today. I'm not doing any delivery. There's still that drive to want to be successful and make sure I'm adding value. So yeah, that was probably the biggest thing to get over initially, was that shift.
Personally, Andy, do you have any go-tos that help you navigate change in your personal life?
because my schedule is fairly hectic. I'm traveling a lot. I spend a lot of time in airports and hotels, probably more than most other speakers and trainers globally. So I'm very careful that I need to ground myself. So I have to, I feel that, not that I have to, but I choose to with my international trips, particularly, is to make sure I have some downtime. So I like to get somewhere out in the mountains near water where I can kind of just mentally relax and think about the next stage. So it's probably not that I get to a point and go, oh, I need to make some changes now. Although I think sometimes that external prompt is useful. It's more that I will schedule stuff in to go, what is my next step? What are my next set of goals? So it's more regular than waiting for something to happen and then wanting to change, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be your advice, in a sense, for those struggling or resisting change, or even a personal experience you've had where you've resisted something?
People tend to resist the stuff that seems most painful. And the more painful it is, the more they tend to avoid it. So in the sales field, that equates to new business development, cold calling, picking the phone up and approaching people that are not expecting your call, possibly not going to welcome your call. That's the stuff that gets put off. So for me, there's a few things around that. So a lot of the mindset work I do helps with that. But the easiest way to get over it is discipline and pushing yourself. So knowing that you're avoiding making these sales calls, putting it in your diary at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning to do 45 minutes and nothing else, and pushing yourself to do it. Discipline, I find, is the first thing that helps get over that, and then we can manage what happens. So unless there's a manager stood over them making them do that, most people will put that off. In my situation where I rose to the top salesperson in the UK, I didn't necessarily do it through intelligence. I didn't do it through me having a better product or service. I had the same product at 15% more expensive. It was about my individual drive, my work ethic, and I became the difference in the process. So I would say that the future of sales for me is down to differentiation. How do you differentiate from other people that offer what you do? I find that sales can shift every 6 to 12 months. I'm changing material every 6 to 12 months. Sometimes I'm teaching the opposite of what I would train 5 years ago because the market's changed. So I talk more now about sales development than sales training. Training implies it's a knowledge thing. So once you've learned that Control C is copy and Control V is paste on a computer, you're probably not going to forget that. Whereas sales is evolving so much, it's a continuous journey rather than I've learned to do it now. I've been on a 2-day course 10 years ago. I should be really good. Again, I suppose it's almost a change message from everything's constantly changing. Staying up to date and developing yourself rather than thinking it's a training piece would be another great point. I think that the world changes so much now. The one constant is change. So you have to embrace it and continually adapt and reinvent yourself on a regular basis. So that's something I'm quite keen on doing.
Hey, Andy, thanks so much for your time on the Heroes of Change series. Really
My pleasure.
appreciate it. And I have to get over to Manchester and have a bodies in the next couple of years.
More than welcome, my friend.